Alright, I finished reading Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said by Philip K. Dick. This is a very weird little sci-fi book, but I figured that's not really a surprise because it's Philip K. Dick and everything he wrote was really weird. How do I describe this? Okay, the basic premise is that Jason Taverner, who is a world-famous talk show host, wakes up one morning to find that nobody remembers him. Nobody, like, knows his name, including, like, his friends, his coworkers, or whatever. And no one's heard of him, and there's no evidence that he ever existed. Like, all of his ID cards are gone. So he's trying to figure out, like, how to fix that. And this is set, God, the timeline on this book is so fucking weird, because it's set in the 1980s, but written in the 70s, okay. But for some reason, the world is just radically different in the 80s than it was in like real life in the 70s. It's like, the fuck is happening? Like, they have flying cars and a police state, and like all of the universities and colleges were shut down and surrounded by like the police with machine guns in case anyone tries to escape. So all of the students and professors are having to like live underground, and that's not even important to the story. It's just like a thing that's happening in the background. It's world building. Like, it doesn't affect the main character. He's not involved in any of that. But he's just running around like trying to get fake IDs, and he keeps like running into like police informants, and then like a third of the way through the book, you get this other major character who is this police like general, whatever that is, and he is a lot. And he is initially just trying to figure out, why is there this man who's been picked up who, like, doesn't have any information on him? Because they have, like, extensive information on everybody, but there is no evidence that this guy ever had any records. And they're like, well, he must have somehow gotten them deleted or something. And then it just goes absolutely off the rails. And there's a whole bunch of weird stuff about drugs and incest, and there's just a lot of different, like, Jason, while he's trying to figure his shit out, keeps bouncing between all of these different women that he meets, some of whom he knew in his previous life, and most of whom he didn't, and just a lot of really odd stuff, and is a very weird book. Like, it really is. I enjoyed it, but yeah. I don't know. I don't really know how to recommend this. Like, okay, it won the John W. Campbell Award for some reason. This is the kind of stuff they were enjoying in the 70s, I guess. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's a pretty good book. It's just very odd, and like, there's just a lot of like time spent in the character's head while he's like, or like while he's having conversations with people about death and grief, and like just a lot of stuff. And then there's this whole part where they discover this weird new drug, and there's this long like, oh, this must have really been what was happening, that's the explanation. And it's like, the fuck? And like I don't know. There's also this moment where where there's this part where these cops are trying to catch him, and they're looking in every apartment in this apartment building, and in one of them there's this, well, okay, it doesn't matter, but like there's like a rug on the floor that it's described as the ascension of the second son of God, Richard M. Nixon. I'm like, what happened in the 70s in this world where everybody invented flying cars and lost their goddamn minds? But anyway, that made me laugh a lot. But this book is weird, and but it's like, it's Philip K. Dick. So, like, you always know you're gonna get something strange, but it'll be a weird time. So, it gave me that. It's time to talk about The Night Season by Chelsea Cain. So this was an audiobook. And it's the fourth in a mystery thriller series which I have been reading slowly over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years. This is kind of an odd entry in the series because the focus of the series is generally on this police detective whose backstory is that he spent 10 years trying to catch a serial killer, only to actually end up getting caught by her, and then she tried to kill him. I don't want to get into it. She actually did kill him, but then he was resuscitated. Anyway, now she's in prison. But, okay, so this is a weird entry, though, because she's not in this book, and she normally is. They mention her, like, a couple times. She does show up in the very last chapter, or so, I guess. I don't know, the chapters are really short, so I don't remember if it was the last one or, like, the second to last one. But it was after all of the action of the main plot was over, possibly setting up something for the next book. I'm not really sure. We'll see. I think because in book 3, I think it was book 3, she committed more crimes. And so they had to have a hearing for that. I don't know why. It's like 6 months later, though, so I don't know why they've waited so long. But anyway, whatever. Who cares? So the thing is that was an odd thing about it, that the story had basically nothing to do with Gretchen. It also lacked the kind of weird psychosexual, like, stuff that the other books have often had, and it was just kind of like, just kind of too bad, but I did enjoy it. Okay, so the plot is completely insane, though. Like the villain, the serial killer, how he's killing people, grade A bonkers. So that, at least, I was like, oh boy, what the fuck is this? Let's dive into it. But, definitely the weirdest way of killing people that I have encountered in a book about murder yet. Or indeed, I think it may be weirder than, like, they had weird ways of killing people on Criminal Minds, but this would rival a lot of the stranger ones on there, I'll say. Maybe it's not as weird as that episode of Brad Dourif turned people into puppets, but like the actual method of killing people, I don't think was weird in that. It was just the puppet part. Anyway, I think he shot people, right? I don't even remember. Who cares? The point is that this guy kills people by getting them to touch and therefore be bitten by a blue ring octopus. So you will learn a lot about blue-ringed octopus. Words, cannot speak. In this book. Like, they're the size of a golf ball. I didn't know that. They sound so cute. I love octopuses. But of course, they're also one of the deadliest animals on Earth, simply in terms of if it kills you, you're pretty much gonna die. I mean, I guess it's survivable, but, like, it ain't a great outlook. They have... Now, let me think. It's not entirely clear in the book, actually. But, because they talk about how they use a toxin. But I think the toxin is produced by bacteria and not by the animal itself. But by probably, like, symbiotic bacteria in its saliva. But anyway, enough about that. Sorry. So then the other thing is that, like, Portland is flooding because it's raining all the time, and also there was a lot of snow and now it's melting from the mountains. I guess the mountains that feed the river, which is called the Willamette. I don't know. Listen, I've never been to Portland. Okay, and I had to do, like, and there was this thing about this big flood that had happened in 1948 that I actually looked this up and it is real. So that was not relevant to the main plot, but well, actually it was in the end, but it wasn't like they were trying to solve how the people there died or anything. It was like, no, we know that they drowned. But yeah, sorry, I am all over the place with this one. The Willamette is flooding. Several bodies of drowned people have turned up, but then they realize, hang on, these people didn't actually die by drowning. They died before they were in the water. And so then they, you know, from there they realize somebody's been killing people somehow. They've been poisoning them somehow. I wish that the book had had a few more scenes from the perspective of the serial killer, just because those were very creepy, and that was fun. But overall, I enjoyed it. And I talk about one of these books once a year, and it's the longest process of me reading this series, but I like doing it slowly. I don't know. I don't have to. I could read it faster, but it's nice to have like one of these books to read each year. But I will say that I am glad that main character Archie is doing so much better, because I kept thinking about stuff they would do in the earlier books, and I was like, okay. He used to be completely off his nut, and he is doing a lot better, so good for him. And I am still sitting here like, is him and Susan, like, is that endgame? Because they're not at all together. It's not even something that's been floated as something that they would want, but like, I'm still sitting here like, but is that endgame though? Whatever, we'll find out. 2 more books. Hopefully, maybe a little bit more exciting than this one. I'm hoping for more Gretchen content, because like, I came here for the nonsense with that specific serial killer. I want more of it. Thank you. Okay. It was still good, but you know, it was not quite what I was hoping it would be. Yeah, so that's the review. Okay, so today I finished the audiobook of If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. And it was fine. I don't know, man. Like, maybe I would have liked it more if I was reading it and not listening to it. But it was like fine. I don't know. Okay, so the plot is that it's kind of this love story, but it's very like bad things are constantly happening, so it isn't like a romance novel by any means. But it's about this young couple, Tish and Fonnie, and it's all narrated by Tish, and she is telling the story about how Fonnie is in prison, accused of raping someone. The trial hasn't happened yet. Also, he's innocent, and she finds out she's pregnant. So basically it has kind of a dual timeline thing going on, which I thought was interesting, going back and forth between like basically the present when he's in prison and the past of like literally like 3 months ago or whatever. But you know, she talks about like how they fell in love, I guess, and like why they know each other. And there's a lot of stuff about their families and like complicated drama with everybody, and then essentially he gets fingered for this rape accusation, basically just because like this one cop hates him. And I appreciated that there's all this stuff about the woman who was raped, because she goes back to Puerto Rico, which I guess is where she's from, and the mother, Tish's mother, ends up going to Puerto Rico to find her and try to persuade her to change her testimony, and tries to persuade her like that it can't have been Fonnie who did it. But I appreciated that the book was very sympathetic towards her, and like I just was glad that it wasn't a case of her totally lying about everything, because she wasn't. She genuinely thought Fonnie did it, kind of because like it was a black man, and then they had him as literally the only black guy on like the lineup, so it's super shitty, but that's why she picked him. But also like she doesn't want to go back and change her story because she just wants it all to be over. And there are parts that are very, I mean, it's beautifully written. I just have a cold dead heart, and it mostly didn't like get me. But I did really like the part towards the end where there's like this moment where, I don't know, Tish is weird. It's like her baby is like speaking to her just for one scene, but like, how do I even describe this? It was just an interesting moment of, like, the baby says something which I think is from the Bible, and it says, like, there was not one righteous among them, or is there not one righteous man among them, or something. And, like, I don't know, it was just this moment where I was like, wait, so the baby, because it is a being of complete innocence, is judging humanity like God would? I don't know, it was, like, weird. But anyway, I liked that, I guess. I liked, what did I like? I don't know. I feel like I should have been more moved by this book than I was, but I was just kind of like, I don't know. Fonny was nice, like, he seemed like a sweet guy. He was a sculptor. Or, well, he wanted to be a sculptor, and, like, yeah. I definitely spent the whole book being like, excuse me, but the title is false advertising. It is not set in Memphis. It's set in New York. So I looked it up when I was done. I was like, why the fuck is this book called If Beale Street Could Talk? Beale Street is in Memphis. And apparently it's from a song. So it's good to know that even James Baldwin was titling his fics with song lyrics long before the rest of us morons got on AO3 and couldn't think what to call our fan fictions, and so just made them like Florence and the Machine lyrics or whatever. Anyway, the book was okay. Yep. It was okay. I don't know. It wasn't really my thing, and I wasn't really feeling it, but I wish it had been set in Memphis. That doesn't matter at all, really, but I feel like I was tricked. Whatever. It was, like, fine. Yeah, it was fine. It was, in fact, probably a classic. I do not have feelings, so I did not appreciate it. I don't know. I do want to read more by him. I want to read Giovanni's Room. Yeah, I'm gonna do that sometime. But anyway, peace. Alright, today I finished The Price of Salt by Patricia Highsmith. I'm sorry that I start every clip by saying alright. I'm trying to stop. This is my first Patricia Highsmith. I have never read anything by her, and so I thought I would really like to. And this is the one novel I had at the library when I went and looked. So, The Price of Salt. I've seen the movie, Carol, which is based on this, but it was a lovely book. It was what I wanted. It was what I needed. You know, it's just vintage lesbians. Like, this book was published in, like, 1952. Yeah, in 1952. And it's a wonderful book because it's, like, it's about these two women who fall in love. And it's very, like, quiet, and just the vibes are immaculate. I mean, a lot of the plot is just about them getting together and spending time together. And kind of the first half of the book, they're in New York, and then they decide to take this road trip together. And so for a lot of the rest of the book, they're traveling around the country. And there's just this wonderful sense of, like, there's this sense of isolation in the book in a lot of ways. But especially in that section, it's like a positive isolation, because it's just the two of them kind of moving through these different towns and kind of living in their own perfect little bubble where things can just be the way they want them to be. And then, of course, real life, unfortunately, intrudes, but it has a happy ending. Like, I don't want to completely spoil it, but it's not an ending of, like, tragedy, which so many gay stories or queer stories from the mid-20th century just all are super tragic in their endings, and this just isn't. It has a hopeful ending. It has a positive ending. It ends the way the movie does, if you've seen it, but it's just a lovely book that I really enjoyed. And I am so glad I read it. I love the way she writes. And I definitely want to read more by her, although none of her other books are quite like this. I think this is the only kind of like lesbian love story type thing that she ever wrote, but I really do want to read some of her thrillers. This is not a thriller. I guess it's just literary fiction. I'm not really sure how to place it, but it's good. And I would recommend it. And it's lovely. And I just really like the way it's written. And the places they go to, too, because they do travel as far west as Salt Lake City briefly, but a lot of their traveling is just in the kind of in the Midwest or in the Great Plains states, and I'm sitting here like, these are my places. Like, I've been to Waterloo, I've been to Sioux Falls, you know, so that's nice. And yeah, God, I can't recommend this enough. So that's I think what I'll say about it, but yes. So Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow is, I listened to it. Yes, it's an audiobook. Okay, and it was read by Ronan Farrow too, so that was actually pretty cool. Where did we start? This is mostly about the whole Harvey Weinstein thing. So in many ways this book is not fun, but the fact that I never know what's really like going on in the world at least means that I was experiencing a lot of suspense, because I was like, I of course know all of the Harvey Weinstein, all these people accusing him of being a super creep and raping them and other things that aren't quite as bad but are still pretty bad. And you know, now he's in jail forever, so that's awesome. But I mean, I knew about that, right? But I didn't know who had originally like done the reporting. I guess I knew Ronan Farrow was involved, but like I didn't know where it was coming from, right? And there's a fair chunk of the book is like, is NBC going to actually air the story or not? Which would not be suspenseful if you knew, but I didn't know. Ugh, anyway. It was good. It was a good book. It was interesting. It was like it's very much about like the process of him making this, I don't know what to call it, I guess, news episode or whatever for NBC. Spoilers, ultimately NBC decided not to continue the reporting and to air it, and so he eventually ended up writing something for the New Yorker. But it was NBC for a while. But lots of back and forth, lots of behind the scenes stuff, and just kind of like incrementally learning more and more about what, you know, about who might have accusations against Weinstein, what he may have done, etc., etc. And just his own perspective on it. And man, there are so many more spies in this than I was expecting. And also there's some stuff about Matt Lauer being very... I actually, despite the fact that most of the book is about Harvey Weinstein's particular crimes, the one I found the most disturbing was one that was described of Matt Lauer doing something at the Sochi Olympics towards the end of the books, which was really, really horrifying. So, like, trigger warning for many things for this book, but I feel like that should be fairly obvious. Yeah, but it was well written. And it was interesting. And he did a good job reading it. I don't know. I felt like there was just enough of Farrow's own perspective throughout the book. Not too much, but I also, like, you were always kind of, you know, aware that it was him, because the whole thing's from his perspective. Like, it's very much like, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously it's nonfiction, obviously, but it's not, you know, it's about what he was doing. So, yeah, but it's not really about him, but he is there, and you know how he feels about things. And, yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I don't have, like, that much to go into, really. It was interesting. And it's also just, like, pretty infuriating how these powerful men in these companies can get away with stuff for years and years, basically because they become indispensable to these companies. And, like, these are the guys making the money. I mean, it's one thing also, like, with Weinstein being kind of in... It was his company, right, that he started with his brother. So it makes sense that he had that much power in that company. But then you look at someone like Matt Lauer, and it's like, well, he didn't start NBC. He wasn't in charge of it. He was just one of the kind of, I don't know, one of the big shots working for them. But that was still enough that, like, anything horrible that he did didn't matter. Like, they were just going to sweep it under the rug. And it's just showing how so many of these people were, like, each doing their own small part to be part of this whole, I don't know, this whole culture of making it so that these women who were actresses trying to get their start, or interns, or just, like, literally any woman, can't just do their goddamn jobs and not have to worry about their coworkers committing crimes against them. Like, it's, oh God, like, what is wrong with some men, genuinely? A lot. And then, I mean, also, you've always got to consider as well that if people are horrible and they want to continue being horrible and getting away with it, then, they must be good at charming everybody into thinking they're not horrible. Right? Because, like, if you weren't charming, you would have stopped getting away with it sooner, hopefully. But anyway, so it's fucked up. Capitalism is a nightmare. And, yeah, nobody takes women seriously. It's not fun. I assume. But yeah, so it's, like, a lot of really genuinely some fucked up things described in this book in some detail. There is also, he got a copy of a recording of Weinstein kind of, like, trying to pressure this one woman, and part of the recording is played in the book. So I don't know how that works if you're reading the book physically, but in the audiobook they just play the part of the recording. So that's a bit creepy, and I wasn't really expecting it, so I just thought I'd mention. But, I mean, it's just like he's talking, but it's like, ugh. But, yeah, I thought it was good. And there is way more Israeli spies than I was expecting there to be. I was expecting there to be 0, but there were multiple. So, yeah. Anyway, whatever. Good book.